Hello, and welcome to the Biomass Magazine podcast. I am your host, Anna Simet, and today I'm chatting with Tim Portz, Program Director of BBI International. And Tim is joining us today to discuss the speaker abstract and program development process for the 2023 International Biomass Conference and Expo, which will be held in Atlanta, Georgia, February 28th through March 2nd. Tim, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So it's that time of year. The abstract submittal process is open right off the bat. Can you give us sort of a brief rundown of the general process of submitting an abstract if someone is interested in speaking?
Sure. So the first thing I'll do is point to the calendar. Next Friday, we will close our abstract portal. So Friday, October 28th would be the last day to submit an abstract for consideration. So that's an important point to establish. The next part is biomassconference.com is where you submit your abstract for consideration. And if you go to biomassconference.com and go to the agenda tab, submit presentation idea is, I think, the second choice in that drop-down menu that comes up. And on that tab, and in that particular drop-down, there's instructions, there's, what we're looking for, a list of topics, some guidance on how we grade or how we think about these abstracts. So again, a lot of our presenters are second, third, fourth, fifth time presenters. And so for that community, this is a relatively familiar process. But for those folks that have never done this before, and we've already got some abstracts that we've received from organizations that I certainly don't remember seeing abstracts submitted from, there are good instructions available to those folks who are brand new to our conference or brand new to this whole process. So biomassconference.com, agenda, submit presentation idea, tons of information there, relatively easy to follow. And then, of course, there's an email address in case anyone runs into any kind of problem. So it's very straightforward, and we look forward to seeing what people want to talk about.
Thank you. So you had mentioned topics, and the submittal process has been open for a while. What are you seeing so far in terms of trends in topics? Is there anything specific you're looking for? What are people going to be interested in hearing about this year?
Yeah, so the fun thing, and maybe the best part of the Biomass Conference is its breadth, right? So we really cover every category in the biomass to energy world. Everything from the manufacture of wood pellets to biogas co-products to landfill gas capture to sustainable aviation fuels to energy crops. So it's very broad. And again, with probably, my guess is we've got somewhere between 25 and 30% of the abstracts that we're going to receive already in hand. And certainly the topics that we already have in hand, the abstracts that we have in hand, support that idea that we're going to have a very diverse show. So I'm looking at probably the first thing that jumps off the page to me is the strong number of biogas abstracts we already have in hand. Everything from, again, I mentioned landfill gas. So here's an abstract that's come in already. Wastewater biosolids drying and pelletization utilizing landfill gas as a fuel. And those are the type of highly technical, highly targeted abstracts that we love. We've got another abstract about enhancing biogas yield. We've got an abstract here about biogas co-products and how to really find multiple revenue streams for biogas projects. We always have a strong number of project development abstracts. And this will probably come as no surprise to anyone who follows our space and our segment. But the Inflation Reduction Act and what that means for biomass energy producers of all kinds is already showing up in our abstract pool. And I expect that to continue. I also wanted to share this one. We always do relatively well in the material handling category. And so this particular abstract jumped off the page to me: sandwich belt, high angle conveyors, elevating the value of biomass. So again, very technical. The angle of conveyors is always a consideration. So I look forward to reading more about that, but we love material handling abstracts. So if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're in the material handling space, please know the Biomass Conference always features material handling. Sometimes we receive so many abstracts that we have multiple panels on material handling. So those are always welcome, and we look forward to seeing those types of topics.
So Tim, do you have any don'ts as far as submitting abstract goes? Again, we're looking for specificity, relevance, and so long as people can establish those two things, we love it. So in terms of a don't, I would say don't be general. Don't, and this doesn't happen much. I would say less than 5 abstracts per year fall into this category. But occasionally we'll receive abstracts that are just a handful of sentences that don't establish any sort of relevance, that don't promise to be specific. And those are very tough for us as program developers to place. Right.
I think you can actually accomplish quite a bit in 200 words, maybe even less, 150 words sometimes. Try and pay attention to the 4 characteristics of good abstracts that we outline on the Submit Presentation Idea page: specificity, relevance, detail, and understandability. Again, this is a broad and general group. Are there highly technical people in the audience? Yes. Are there PhDs in the audience? There are. But there's also biomass producers or foresters or wastewater treatment professionals. And so we want folks who come to our presentations, not to say that we can't have highly technical content, because we do, but there needs to be an on-ramp for our attendees to really understand what it is that our presenters are talking about, and better yet, to understand why it's important for biomass energy producers. So I realize I sort of flipped the question, but don't be vague. How about that?
Right.
Don't be vague.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, to kind of round this conversation out, you have said before that exhibiting at the conference and then also participating in the agenda really kind of complement each other and maximizes the conference experience. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure, and this will be my ongoing refrain as long as I'm involved in this conference. Our interest is, this is a commercial conference. Most conferences are. And we understand that people attend conferences, people present at conferences because they have a commercial interest in the space. They would like to sell products or services to the men and women that operate biogas to energy facilities. And one thing that's always surprised me are the number of exhibitors who don't engage in the agenda process at all, who don't throw their hat into the ring to be a presenter, from someone from their team to be a presenter. And at least my experience has been that those entities, those companies that really embrace this process and put someone on our agenda and put together technical content for our audience, they have a better experience on the expo floor than those companies that do not. So we're going to have maybe 120, 150 different exhibitors. I would love to see 120 or 150 abstracts to reflect all of those exhibitors who are out there. And so if you're listening to this and you already have a booth, I'd ask you to consider this. What was the last problem that you solved for a customer, and a customer in the biomass to energy category? What was that problem that you solved? Why were you engaged? What did you deploy to solve the problem? And what happened? What were the results? What did you accomplish? That to me is the foundation of a terrific abstract. And I would just ask people to think about that.
Right.
Here's the thing to remember. You've got about 15 to 18 minutes to present, right? So I think that allows you to get really specific. This high angle conveyor presentation or abstract comes to mind. It's a very specific need. Listen, I don't have a lot of space. I can't have a conveyor set at a 15-degree angle. I need to have a conveyor at 30, 45, whatever it is, high angle conveyor. It's a very specific problem. I need to convey something from this level to that level, and I don't have enough room to have a low angle conveyor. I imagine that this abstract will talk about discovering that problem at a producer site, deploying the high angle conveyor, and being able to effectively move material from one spot to another with not a lot of room, again, for a low angle conveyor. Boom. That's a 15 to 18 minute presentation. I assure you that someone in the audience that has that small footprint of a plant or has that specific need, those people will be presenting themselves to the presenter at the end of the technical session, asking for more information. And here's the other thing, asking where their booth is. Hey, I've got a specific problem. Where can I talk more about X? In this case, the high angle conveyor. Oh, we're at booth 315. Please come see us. Fantastic. It really can be that simple. And I think the important thing to remember about presentations is, again, you got 15 to 18 minutes. You cannot answer every question. You cannot talk about your full suite of products or services that you can offer. And better yet, or better stated, we don't want you to try and do that. I want people to show that they're expert in something. And again, if you can point to a specific case study, we love case studies. If you're listening right now, put case study in your presentation title, abstract title. It will get my attention. It will absolutely get our attention. And establish that you're an expert, and the attendees will find you if you accomplish that. They will. I've seen it for over a decade now. So what can you point to that establishes your expertise in a particular area, and go with that? So again, I think you're leaving opportunity on the table. I think you're leaving the single best way to drive traffic to your booth on the table if you do not submit an abstract. It's really important. We want people to have a good experience. We want people to have follow-up conversations with our producer attendees, right? We want people to be happy with the amount of booth traffic. Well, use the agenda as an opportunity to establish your expertise, and that will go a long way in achieving that booth traffic that everybody's hungry for.
Absolutely. Some really good points, Tim. Before we wrap it up, again, where can our listeners go to submit an abstract? Yeah.
So biomassconference.com, the agenda tab, I believe it's the second or third one down, submit presentation idea. The other thing that we're going to be doing next week. So next week is when the bulk of the abstracts will come in. Like I said, we've probably got about 25 or 30% would be my guess. So over the course of the next week, please follow Biomass Magazine on Twitter. We're going to be tweeting the presentation topics that come in. And this is something that we launched about 3 or 4 years ago, because I think sometimes what happens, Anna, is people think, geez, I'd really love to present on high angle conveyors, but is anybody else going to submit abstracts about conveying solutions? I don't know. Probably not. I guess I won't do that. No. Please submit and watch that Twitter feed, because we will be sharing with folks what we've received. And what I find is that when people know, hey, wow, they've received some conveyance abstracts. Well, we're in the conveyance game. Let's submit an abstract as well. Be watching that Twitter feed. Be watching that Twitter channel so that you can understand what we've already got in hand. All right. And it's really going to take off about Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I don't know what it is. It's just abstract logic. People wait until the last 2 days to submit. We wish we had more runway to know what's coming in ourselves, to let our other potential submitters know what we've received. But this is the way it's shaken out for years. The bulk of the abstracts come in the last 2 days. So please watch that Twitter feed to understand what's coming in. If you have questions, of course, reach out to anybody on the team. Speakers at BBIinternational.com will come to myself, Danielle. Someone will get back to you if you have any problems at all or further questions.
Awesome. Well, Tim, thanks so much for joining us today and, sharing this advice. Really look forward to the conference.
Hey, we really look forward to reviewing everyone's abstract. When in doubt, submit the abstract. That's what I would say. Mm-hmm. Get your name in line. Get your name out there for us to consider you. It really will enhance your conference experience. I guarantee it. We've done this for a long time. The team that's put together this conference is the same team that's been doing, we're 10, 12 years into this now. So we know what we're doing, and we know that this is the single best conference opportunity this year to gather producers and present your expertise in front of that very specific biomass to energy producer audience. So thanks in advance for considering our event.
You hit the nail on the head. To our listeners, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you in Atlanta. Be well.